Hello, CFA Nation. Rashaad.
Gabe.
Nick.
And welcome to
Yeah.
another installment of. Wait, what are we doing?
Cricket combos.
Combos. I love it. I absolutely love it. You guys can tell how coordinated we are, but guys, this is the definitive Rashaad interview, aka my man Biggs. And
Biggs.
we're super excited to have him on the channel and talk some West Indies cricket. Because right now, West Indies are holding their own. I wouldn't say they're holding court, but just before bro, listen, we got a chance to draw.
Has it been that rough for a West Indies fan?
It has been.
That needed 300 runs in one day?
Bro, a draw is a victory in Australia.
Oh, absolutely, a draw. A draw is a victory.
Honest,
but
if I could be honest with you, batting 90 overs is a victory.
Exactly. And again, to talk about the state of West Indies cricket, some thoughts obviously from a long-term fan, and or long-time fan, I should say. And Rashaad, myself, I've been following them now. I keep saying 2 years, Nick, but we're already on our third year of cricket.
Yeah,
we started in a pandemic, and I've seen some good changes. I seen there was just an interesting interview the other day with Jason Holder on Cricket Info that I was just reading, and really, they were even talking to him about like, man, it had been 10 years since they interviewed him, and it was like, you were the mainstay, the former Test captain, and you've seen such tough times, especially in Test cricket. And some of his responses were like, I want to be here right now through the tough because I know eventually it's going to get better. And I know eventually I know where the talent's at, and I know where the direction of the organization is. Kind of the gist of the interview was there's a plan, you know what I mean? And then later on, there was another interview that was like, is Calypso Fire back? Like, you know what I mean? Are we going to start? So I'm excited for it. What are your thoughts, Rashaad?
So, to be honest, we've been hearing that narrative for the better part of 30 years. It's like,
man,
we always go through a transition where we graduate from our former players to newer players, and then we don't transition well. And even down to the last two presidents that we've had, I've said that Dave Cameron, he was not good at honoring our greats. So he kind of like left them hanging. And now Ricky Scared is trying to do too much to honor the greats. So we hang on to them a little too long. And I mean, it's just turmoil. I'll just sum it up to that.
Interesting. Let me ask you that question. Right now, we're talking about with West Indies cricket. We're excited, everyone. I mean, it was all over Twitter. My girl Renelle, what up, Renelle, was talking about Chanderpaul's debut, and Chanderpaul again, 50 Nick on his debut in Australia, and he's doing it against name Brand's cousin. They got Mitchell Stark, Josh Hazelwood. You know what I mean? They throwing Cam Green at him. They got the bowlers coming, so it's not like he went in and scored 50 off nobody.
Right.
And people had been calling for him and saying, we've got guys. Why do we keep going back to? Why do you think they're holding? Why do you think okay, full disclosure, and everybody knows, all right, I have said I will no longer besmirch the name. I'm sorry. What?
I knew you wouldn't hold on to it. I knew you wouldn't hold on to it. Come on, man.
Dude.
Don't break the streak. It's been 130 days since last incident. Come on, don't do it.
130 days since the last incident. All right.
Come on, man. Okay.
I won't besmirch today, but there's certain players that were held on to so quickly, and we're like, what are they doing? Right. And one of the criticisms, for instance, was that Jason Holder, when he was Test captain, because he had personal relationship with players, would keep players on there that were probably not long for the team, that probably shouldn't be on the team. And is that your opinion? That there were other guys that were better, and they just, for whatever reason, now I get it, it's not just his choice, but of course he is one of their selectors. But I mean, do you think that was part of the problem?
So I do not have like direct inside info. I am just like every other Caribbean person where we see what's going on and then we come up to assumptions that are pretty good educated guesses. And throughout the years, we have seen and administration come in, they've been predominantly from one island, and then the captain ends up being from that island that they're from, and then we end up picking a squad that has out of 15 players, 7 of them, 6 of them, 5 of them from the same island. So you can somewhat say that there may be a bit of nationalism involved in some selecting some of these players, as opposed to really and truly selecting the best. Now, in a West Indies situation, a West Indies circumstance, if we were actually winning, I don't think that it would have been such a big outcry. But we see ourselves losing time and time again, and we're calling for players that are excelling in the Caribbean level, but they just can't, break that ceiling. So a guy like Atish, we've been calling for him for the better part of the last 3 years. This is even before John Campbell was one of the openers, because we've seen him bat for Guyana from such a young age, and we saw the promise in Tish. But for some reason, I don't want to sound like, the old guard and whatnot, but some Guyanese players do get a tough stick when it comes to selection to the West Indies squad. And I can't give you a reason. I don't know why, but they have been defending champs for 5 consecutive years and only had 1, maybe 2 players in the West Indies test team. And a lot of us used to scratch our heads and wonder, why can't more Guyanese players crack the West Indies team? And the 2 mainstays at the time were, I think, Het Moya and Kimo Pal. Yeah. It's not even like a Shen Nepal, Himraj, Gudakesh Moti, Virasamy Pamal, who has been a top wicket taker for quite a bit. Right. They couldn't crack the West Indies team.
Interesting. Nick, we kind of talk about that a lot with American sports, right? There's politics involved on any team. Absolutely. Right? There's always, good players that are overshadowed and sometimes don't get a shot. A lot of times it has to do with money, where, hey, if you're paying a player, for instance, I don't know how much you follow the Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys. Everyone and their mother knows that Ezekiel Elliott is practically done. But Jerry Jones insists he plays because he's paying him $20 million a year. All right. Bottom line, that dude's getting paid a lot of money. They're going to play him. My son went through an issue this year, because there's kids that didn't play at all, but he was flat out cooking other kids when he went to college on the practice field. But it took him until the 3rd game to even get any play. Eventually he became a starter because there had already been seniors that had been there. So they had kind of, quote unquote, earned their stripes, even though in practice and training camp, everybody knew this is the better player. So there's always politics involved. But it sounds like with West Indies, there's not just those politics involved, but because of the different islands involved, and it's not, you know what I mean? You've got to have representative players from each island. There's some additional favoritism there. You know what I mean? And again, that's human nature. That's being real, people. It happens. If you don't think that happens, I've got some magic beans to sell you. Email me, hit me on Twitter. You go ahead and put them in the ground. A beanstalk.
He won't get back to you.
I got magic beans for you. Like, listen, it happens. And I think that there needs to be a better way. And going back to your point about the old guard not honoring the players and then the new guard honoring them too much with the cricket board for West Indies and cricket management, I think the biggest issue is the way it's ran. And there's got to be a better way to do it. There just has to be. I remember listening to Kumar Roach, I believe, talking about how when he got his kit, he got it in a plastic trash bag.
That was actually Darren Bravo.
Oh, well, Darren Bravo.
Sorry, Dwayne Bravo. Dwayne Bravo was talking about it.
Yeah, Dwayne Bravo. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it infuriated me. Like, are you serious? That's just unacceptable. So I don't know, other than to say how fans could make their voices heard. And literally, I say this all the time. If you don't think that pressure on social media and pressure on any platform, whether you're boycotting games or, you know what I mean, whatever, doesn't add up, believe me, the noise matters. And I think that there's got to be that kind of like, listen, we got to get these guys out of here, because it does start at the top, right? Organizationally, the same teams that are victorious all the time, it always starts at a time. Usually they don't change management all the time. Usually they've got a good plan, a good leadership structure, and then everything goes, from the top bottom, not the other way around. So I'm willing to start it. Okay. Apparently on Twitter now, I could pay $8 and do whatever I want to do. So I'm fitting to get on there and unban myself from my last banning. And listen, hashtag get rid of them. Get rid of everybody in the management structure. Clean house. Get rid of everybody. Nick, will you join us?
Well, I'll always join you to stir some things up, but this is a question I have for Rashaad because I really don't know, and you have more experience with this. When it comes to the selection committee for the West Indies, are there different committee heads that are representing each individual island?
So in terms of the regional selection board, there are 6 different teams that we have. The Barbados, we have Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, and then we have a subset of the West Indies setup with the Leeward Islands, which comprises of islands such as Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, and Montserrat. I may forget a few names, so forgive me.
That wasn't bad.
And then you have the Windward Islands that comprises of St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, and Dominica. So there's politics within the politics. And coming from the small islands, because I hail from the Leeward Islands, I've seen some choice selections, so to speak, to where some of our guys are left out. Some of our guys are even neglected in terms of training camps and whatnot. And it's like, if you just cater to who we classify as the big islands, how do you expect cricket in the smaller islands to grow? Right. So it's a means of trying to strike a balance in terms of distributing wealth, distributing exposure, even if it means the West Indies now taking a step forward and saying, okay, let's send a camp into the smaller islands, being that they're so divided in terms of geographically, and let's try to kind of bring them together, stitch them together so that there's some level of cohesion within that team. Because with a team like Trinidad, everybody plays against each other for club cricket, but there's still that moment for them to actually come together and still play against one another. Whereas the Leeward Islands, yeah, we can play amongst ourselves in Anguilla, but for us to really and truly compete against our future teammates, we now have to travel to individual islands, which is an expense.
So to piggyback on that, do you think that these people that make these selections, the regional selections as you call it, do you think they listen to the voice of the people, the voice of the fans, or is it strictly it's our way or the highway?
Now, this is just my opinion.
Right.
I think that some of them go through a power trip, so to speak, and then they still have a sense of, like I told you before, nationalism, in that they want to see the people from their islands prosper because, let's be honest, they've seen these players grow from the under 13 level and seen their progress through the years and want nothing but good for them. So I can't fault them for having a sense of personal national pride for some of the players that they've seen grow from strength to strength. But in the same breath, if you really and truly want regional cricket and West Indies cricket to grow, you have to somewhat look at it from an objective lens. And I don't think we do a lot of that in the West Indies team. No, because I don't think I answered your first part of your question, how they usually try to set it up. There's usually 4, maybe 5, sometimes 6 guys from each individual setup. Like for the Leeward Islands, you may have maybe 3 or 4 guys that may select the team. Probably the same thing for the Windward Islands. And then from the West Indies level, I think the selection committee is headed by the chief selector, and then maybe like 3 or 4 other selectors there, and then the coach and the captain can have their say as to what squad members they want in the team.
Because I'm wondering, and I don't know for sure because I have no clue, I'm wondering, like you talked about the politics, you talk about the nationalism, if they're in the room and they're arguing about who to select, and if it's like, oh, but we don't have a player from this island, we don't have a player from my island, we don't have this or this, as opposed to who the best. And what I'm ultimately getting at, as I'm sure you guys as West Indies fans can see this, 1970s, you had 2 World Cups. The first 2 World Cups, West Indies won. They dominated, right? First ever 2-time World Cup winner, and they held that for a while. Then the T20 World Cup, first time ever 2-time T20 World Cup winner until England tied it up. So in both of those areas of cricket that were very popular in their own right when they came out, and for a while after that, West Indies was the mold that everyone wanted to be like. They had the style, they had the power, they had the bowling, they had enough to get those World Cups.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see in both of those areas, especially in T20 being a quick decrease. And we've seen, even with England this last World Cup, we've seen teams rebound because they have that great core, but West Indies is going through a lot of fluctuations. So ultimately, if I'm a fan, I'm saying I get representation from all islands, and I'm sure there's great players in all islands, but let's stack them up. Let's rank them. Let's have them play. Let's put them to the fire 1 through 50, so to speak, and let's choose the best guys to go forward and try that out for whatever period of time. That might not be realistic, but that's what I would be clamoring for as a fan. What are your thoughts? What are your takes on that type of situation? Because it's to a situation where we have to have pride for the West Indies cricket.
Right.
We have great cricket. We have a great history, and we have a great future. Let's just take advantage of it and not worry about, sorry to say, but the politics of it all.
Right. Well, I think one of the ways that we can combat that is do a blind selection. No, I understand the eye test does matter. Don't get me wrong. But there are some players that we have that excel numerically. Like their stats just blow out the water.
I love that.
A guy like Devin Thomas, right? We could keep a batter from Antigua and Barbuda and in the Leeward Island side, right? This man, for the first 2 rounds of this year's regional 4-day tournament, averaged 80. And I think he finished the season on maybe like 59 runs. One of maybe 4 or 5, correct me if I'm wrong, in the chat, one of maybe 4 or 5 players to average over 50,
right?
Over 45 for the season. And he kept getting selected for the team, but could never crack the final 11. Even down to the recent practice matches that we've had, he was one of maybe 2 or 3 players to actually score 50, but still could not make the final 11 for the first test. It's like, and I don't want to sound like a hurt Leeward Island fan, but it's like, how much more can a guy do to show the selectors, hey, I'm here? And then he's what, 31, 32?
Right.
So, he's still, even though he has more game in him, he does not have years behind him.
Right. I mean, honestly, I feel you, because your mortality as an athlete, you've got a window there. So yeah, 31, 32, you're running out of time, cousin. You're running out of time. So wow, that's crazy to me. But I love the blind selection. Have you ever seen the movie Moneyball? Are you familiar with the term Moneyball? So it's about the Oakland A's and how they built a championship team. And blind selection simply was also kind of the Moneyball aspect. Basically, take the name away from the player. Don't look at the name on the back of the jersey. Right. Look at stats, bottom line. What do they produce? And then use the aggregate of that to get the best players. Because some players will, just because of name recognition, will go and be selected over a player that's far, far superior. So I agree that blind selection should be incorporated into the West Indies selection process. Right. I want to ask you a different question. All right. I've got a theory. All right. It's not newly formed, by the way, but I got a theory. And I want to see if you agree with me. Okay. So West Indies, to Nick's point, used to be a great, I mean, West Indies were so dominant. We just saw the movie 83 not too long ago, where West Indies had played India, right, in that World Cup. So this theory goes back to actually something I heard a long time ago, because I used to box as well. And there was an article on ESPN years ago. They talked about where's the next great American heavyweight, right? America has not had a heavyweight in a minute, cousin, in a minute. Since, I mean, you want to talk about the last great heavyweight was probably Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. But after what was his name? Tall dude from England that rocked Tyson. He beat Tyson versus Leonard. Leonard? I think it was. Anyway, make a long story short, we've had these string of European heavyweights from the Klitschko's. Obviously, Ruiz was a Mexican heavyweight. Now we got the Irish boy. What's his name? Actually, he's a gypsy. I forget. I forget what his
Nick Fury. Not
Nick
Fury,
Fury.
not Nick Fury. Fury. Tyson Fury.
Fury. There you
I
go.
love Nick Fury.
Tyson Fury, right? So where's the next great American heavyweight? They're in the NFL because there's more money in the NFL than there is. Put Aaron Donald in one of those monsters and teach them how to box and see what happens, cousin. But going through boxing myself, the infrastructure is just not there. It's not like they teach it in high school or anything like that. It's something that it's more a family thing. It's ingrained. You're spending a lot of money out of your own pocket to even go through the route, through the route that you would have to take. And most great athletes are just saying, you know what? I'm not going to go through that. I'll just go play in the NFL and play football where I can go to college and get a scholarship. Is an easier road. All right. So Jason Holder had a quote that he said in his article, and I'm going to read it right now. He said, "For me, West Indies cricket is all I knew. These days, there's a lot more T20 cricket being played now with all these leagues. But growing up, my only aspiration was to play for your countrymen and see the past players really entertain crowds and bring smiles and joy to the people's faces." So Jason Holder was kind of responding to a question about what are one of the issues with West Indies cricket. And I kind of read that as the same as him, where the best players probably nowadays aren't focusing on just playing for the West Indies, maybe because they know about the selection issue, but also because they're not getting paid the way they're going to be getting paid if they go play in these international T20 leagues like the IPL, like the BBL, like there's 100, whatever. And the reality is, the majority of the best players of the West Indies, I see themselves formatting themselves as all-rounders. Why? Because that's what everybody wants, all-rounders. Right? Like, hey, all-rounders. They know they go into the IPL as an all-rounder, they're going to make $2 million, cousin. They're going to make $1 million and change for 2-3 months. Same thing in, what do you call it? In the BBL and in the 100. So do you think that part of the issue is we don't have, first and foremost, as dominant and diverse amount of players that can play different functions, because everybody's just focusing on making themselves all-rounders? And I mean, it's really simple. If I spend the majority of my time in the nets, I'm gonna be a better bowler than if I'm spending the majority of my time, practicing batting. If I'm splitting my time between the two, something is gonna, one of those two skills is gonna lack. All right, it's that simple. So do you think that that's affecting some of the dynamics of West Indies squads, where all your best players basically are all-rounders, and that's where everybody's focusing on, and the fact that their goal is not really just to play for the West Indies in general, because I'm probably gonna not get selected, even though I deserve to be. I might as well go make my money in the IPL or in the BBL on the international scene in T20 cricket.
Well, my personal opinion aligns with your second point somewhat, in the sense of, if you look at the first 2 World Cup wins, our motivating factor was to beat England, who at the time was deemed the motherland of the Caribbean, like the for lack of a better term, the colonizers of the Caribbean, right? So you had passion, you had drive to go and take it to the Englands, the Australians, who you guys actually did a video on it where they peppered some of our guys and kind of them, and then Viv came in and showed the West Indies the way forward to progress us for the next 20 years.
Right.
We had passion to go up against these guys and represent the West Indies, saying that we're a diverse group. We got colored people, we got Hindu, what do we call it? Indo-Caribbean people. We got some of everybody.
Yeah.
And we're here on the global stage to show that we are small, we're lacking resources, but we're going to come after you guys.
Yeah.
I think that drive is gone. Going back to the last 2 World Cups that we had in 2012 and 2016. Again, in 2012, everybody was doubting the West Indies team. But these guys who've played together for quite some time heard all the noise and was just sick and tired of it. So they united under Darren Sammy, who I might add is one of the best leaders we've actually ever had. He's an actual leader of men. He might not be the most stylish player. He might not be the most tactical player, but he knows how to command the best out of the resources that he has, and I
Yeah.
give him credit for that. But I digress a bit. There was just this passion and drive, and in that 2016 World Cup, I remember a story saying that Darren Simon was complaining about the team did not even have a uniform at that time. Like they were actually scheduled to play in a uniform that they played in what 2011 or something like that. So they had to scrape together to get that uniform because of the tension between the cricket president at the time and the Players Association.
Wow.
So they were so, excuse me?
No, I'm just reacting to what you're saying. It's crazy.
So they were so passionate about proving Dave Cameron wrong that actually united the team. Because even beforehand, they had a series in India. And I think, oh no, this was actually before the 2012 World Cup. But Dwayne Bravo was the captain at the time. And this was around the time when they started having their little disagreements with Dave Cameron. And they legit stopped playing the match and literally left the series. That cost West Indies a lot of money. And I think that was the start of the real bad blood between the players, the older players like the Bravos, the Gales, the Pollards, and everybody else, and Dave Cameron. And that's why you saw these players not be selected for the bilateral series and whatnot. But then when you actually need a team to represent the West Indies because you want to put a winning formula for the stakeholders and whatnot, then you see them go back to the Gales and the match winners and whatnot. So it's like, as a fan, you're telling us you don't care. You're putting your personal feelings ahead of our passion, our drive, our money, because we are pouring into West Indies cricket, whether they want to believe it or not. We are spending time, money, resources, and everything. And we're always there, even though we cuss and complain, oh, I'm watching West Indies cricket, West Indies, this, da, 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 da. You know, we still end up turning on the TV, cussing them stink, and then turning off the TV again. So
know that feeling. I know that feeling.
So it's like we've only known winning when it came to proving someone or some people wrong. And I think we need to find a new driving force to uniting the team. Another reason why I feel our team is struggling right now is because there's so much money in the franchise games that they don't see the West Indies team as the pinnacle of their cricket careers. They see it as a stepping stone to make maximum dollar. And I can't fault you for that. Like you've said before, Gabe, people got to feed their families.
Right.
So I don't fault you for it, but I wish that the same passion that you have for the money leagues, you would also have that passion for, even if not regional cricket, West Indies cricket. Because I remember Puran came in with an article where they were asking him if he thinks playing red ball cricket at home would improve the white ball team. And he was saying that, yes, he thinks that it will improve everyone's game, but they don't have the time to play it. And I'm scratching my head saying, how do you mean you don't have the time to play it? Right? A guy like a Puran, and don't fault me for this. I'm not faulting him. I'm just like stating what I see, right? A guy like a Puran commands in excess of $5 to maybe $10 million in the IPL.
Right.
And that's just for 2 months of playing cricket in that year.
Right.
Right. Now, I know that he would have to divide some of that money between his managers and his management team and whatnot, but he's still gonna get a pretty penny out of it.
Right.
Then he also plays in the Abu Dhabi T10. Right. So he's making money there too. As a fan, I want to say, all right, Puran, you're getting money from these big leagues. Why not sacrifice the Bangladesh Premier League and all the other smaller franchise tournaments and then come home and play some red ball cricket? Develop your skills, hone in on them, and maybe even play for West Indies test team.
Right.
Why can't you do that? It's not like you don't have time. It's just you prioritize things ahead of the regional cricket or the regional 4-day tournament. And again, like I said, I can't fault them for it because they want to feed their families. But as a fan, I want to see the best product on the field.
Agreed. And listen, I think that to me, the one observation I've made is that first and foremost, India doesn't let their players play in anybody else's T20 league, period. You know what I mean? And Australians, they'll play in the IPL, they'll play in the BBL. But for the most part, they prioritize tests. but it's because they can also make a lot of money playing Test. You know what I mean? And same thing in India. They can make it. You're not going to make the most money playing West Indies cricket. And I think it goes back to getting the right management team to figure it out, whether it's doing more bilateral series, whether it's getting more advertising dollars, whether it's, you know what, bringing games over here. You know, the one game that Nick and I went to down in Florida, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That it had been like a couple years since the West Indies were out here. Like, you've got to make it more lucrative for these players to want to play. All right. That is, it's the bottom line. Because to your point, 31, 32 years old, you're already looking at the end of your career. Basically, I got maybe 2-3 more years left. You know, 35, I'm done. What am I going to do for the next 30, 40 years of my life? You know what I mean? How am I going to survive? And let's be honest, most kids don't get it together until their 30s. I was making bad decisions. Let's be honest, I make bad decisions today. But I was making bad decisions in my 30s. I wasn't thinking about putting money away. I was blowing it. So I'm sure that's what the players do. And then they're like, oh, now let me start trying to save money and be responsible with my finances. But I mean, that was just my opinion. And I wanted to see it from a longer term fan to see if that's what, if you agreed with that. But all right. I mean, Nick, any thoughts, any questions?
So I want to go to another train of thought, and I promise I'm going to get somewhere, but I got to have a little fun first. When I bash the West Indies, right, it's usually to get under this guy's skin right here. That's the entire objective, because we have great viewers, great fans. Renelle, she'll beat me up if I talk too much trash. But first of all, my first question is just a fun question. How much does my bashing annoy you, Biggs? I just want to know.
So it doesn't necessarily annoy me because deep down we know it's true. It's like, come on.
There was something I said in the video. I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, but it's the West Indies, so you know, I'm not surprised. And I got some flack, and I actually love that. But I was not trying to be a hater. I was on Ozjod's channel, Cricket for Us 2.0, when we were making our picks for who's going to move on in the World Cup from the, what do they call it, the group stage? I always forget the names. Sure. And it wasn't intentional. I was just choosing the teams I thought were better in those groups, and I didn't choose the West Indies to go forward. And I actually didn't even realize it until someone made a comment in the comment section like, oh, you're just trying to troll us, are you? And I didn't even think about it because, unfortunately, the fall from grace, in my eyes at least, has been so much. Now, I was lucky enough to be correct because the West Indies didn't move on. And this is not a bashing time. This is me asking you, a West Indies fan, a lifer, what was that like to see them not move on? And obviously they have an automatic qualifier because they're going to be hosting the next World Cup. But do you think now that they have this situation where there's kind of a flux between the white ball team, red ball team, do you think they put more time and resources into T20 cricket, or just say, you know, we're hosting the next one, we're not too worried about that, and putting more resources and time into test team? I'm not sure if that question makes sense. But first of all, how did you feel about the World Cup debacle? And then where do you think their direction is?
I'll be honest, I did not have the greatest expectations, and just in my smaller circle, I was actually saying that I don't see us actually advancing to the group stage. Okay. But the simple fact of I knew Scotland was playing some good cricket. Ireland is always a strong team. Like, I don't know one World Cup where they haven't upset a big dog. Like, they have England's number, literally have England's number.
Right.
Netherlands too. I think the Netherlands are actually undefeated against England in World Cups.
Holy cow!
Granted, they've only seen each other like twice, but I mean, still England can't get the W. So, and Zimbabwe they were a united team, and when your team is united, that can outdo skill sometimes any day. So I knew we had a tough group ahead of us, but what frustrated me was the fact that we are so one-dimensional. You had a guy pull out notes out of his pocket about our players and how to bowl to them, and the very next ball gets a wicket. How does that happen?
It's frustrating.
Wow.
So it was literally embarrassing. It's like, you have the rich history in that you won the first 2 ODI World Cups. You are so close to winning the third one, but you just had, again, a united, self-driven India team that we ran into, that we couldn't get an easy chase you know, like I don't remember what the score was, but I think it was 100 and change.
Right.
You would back it, and that was, I think, I'm not sure whether that was still the 60 over ODI tournament or they changed it to 50 overs, but still, you would back your team to chase that on any day. But they just ran into a very motivated, passionate team. And to see us actually go and be defending champs and then embarrassed the following World Cup and then got embarrassed even more, because it's not the fact that we didn't even qualify for the semifinals in 2021. It was the fact that we lost so many games that we had to qualify. It's like you come from the rich history. It's like you're demeaning yourself, not to make light of the associate nations, but
no, but you're used to it. Like, what's going on?
So long, so it's like you don't see yourself on that level. So it's embarrassing to the state that we've actually come to. So I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I was just still very disappointed. I just had to hang my head.
Nick,
but,
I can answer your question. Your trolling bothers everyone, okay? just
yes.
Right? We hate you, okay?
Listen, I have embraced it. I have embraced it. Gabe says I can't go anywhere. So whenever I do want to visit the West Indies bigs, you gotta like get me in the back door or something like that and hook me up.
We still welcome you at open arms. We're upset game mode, but after that, drink party, do whatever. We put it aside.
I would believe that. I would definitely believe that. And talking about the embarrassment, I relate it to the USA basketball team, right? And it was Beijing 2008, was the Olympics in Beijing 2008. So 2004, when US got the bronze, I mean, it sounds really ridiculous, but we were disgusted with that bronze. Like, we didn't want to throw that bronze. That bronze means nothing to us, because how do you dominate basketball and you get the bronze medal? So I completely relate to that 100%.
You know, you mentioned something just now that I wanted to talk to you about, because you're in the States here, right? You're in Georgia, great state of Georgia.
Absolutely.
Dude, USA Cricket, all right? Associate Nations. Nick and I got the opportunity to go watch USA go ahead and beat Ireland.
Beat Ireland, baby.
Full test nation, right? And, you know, USA Cricket, I think they got 5 wins. They beat PNG recently twice. They
always beat them. Let's just be honest.
Who was it? They beat, was it Netherlands or?
I'll look at it. No, I don't think
they
so.
had Namibia. It was Namibia, Scotland.
They beat Namibia, then they lost in Namibia. But I mean, they got like 4 wins in the last 5 games. They're putting it in work, okay? Now, because a lot of the players are also from the Caribbean, right? From the West Indies. That's where we do a lot of our recruiting. We've got some players that we're familiar with. Going into that World Cup, which Nick and I are super excited about, that's going to be down in Florida. You know, they're going to have games, obviously, in the West Indies, but there's going to be games out here in Florida as well. You know, do you think that USA Cricket is growing at a speed where they can now be that associate nation that can upset some of the bigger teams? Because I've seen them now beat, again, tons of the associate nations, and I've seen them beat in Ireland. But could they actually go out there and bang with the bigger teams, like, again, a Bangladesh, or like you know, even the West Indies, or, you know what I mean? I mean, India and England and Australia, they're like on a different cricket level. So I'm trying to be realistic. Like, could they get to the stage of 16 or get out of the group or something like that? You know, inquiring minds in Vegas, especially some of my friends that like to lay some scratch on the games, want to know, bro. I'm telling you, people are betting cricket. Cricket's getting big in the States, man. I told you that my man texted me the other day with the World Cup, and he was like, oh, upset with who was it that upset England because of the DW
Ireland.
Yeah. He's like, plus 700. Oh, daddy, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of the only sports that, because of the weather and those silly rules like that, you can get a major upset. So, you know what I mean? Like, is there a chance that USA could maybe sneak their way in there? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they do say cricket is a game of glorious uncertainties, and I would like to see what the pool would look like. But I can see a team like the USA with guys like Stephen Taylor, Aaron Jones, and whatnot, and I'm not sure if Kareem Gore would be in standing for the US because he's playing in West Indies right now, playing for the Leeward Islands. He just recently played in the regional Super 50, the Super 50 that we had that just concluded. I don't know where his desires land, and I don't know how much cricket he would play and how well he would do for the Leeward Islands, which would then propel him to the West Indies team.
Yeah.
But you guys do have a lot of talented players in the team, and I mean, 2 years is a long way away.
It is.
You never know how they'll grow. You never know how they'll develop. And with Major League Cricket coming next year, I think
Super excited about it. Yeah.
that can propel the talent exponentially through the roof. So I can see the USA winning a couple of games. Now, from the outside looking in and being so far off, I can't see them making the next round.
Right.
But also, I'm still not saying that it's impossible. Like,
Right.
I can still see a pathway forward, but just from what we have in front of us right now, I see it very difficult for them to advance. But again, cricket is a game of glorious uncertainty.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah, Major League Cricket coming. We're super excited about that because one of the stadiums are going to be right here in our backyard in California. And what were the other ones? I think one is Texas.
It's always Texas. Yeah.
But
they're developing one of the baseball fields, like the Prairie something baseball field, into a cricket field.
Prairie View.
Yeah. But that was another point that I wanted to talk about too. I think us in the Caribbean, we've been foster parents to the US in terms of cricket, and we've missed so many opportunities. With our CPL, I think the 6-team mold, we've outgrown that because we see the same players recycled over and over every single year. And through our cricket on the T20 stage, it's showing us that the talent that they want to display in T20 cricket is not the talent that's going to propel us to the next level. Right. Just somehow they're just not mentally there, physically there, or preparation-wise, they're not there. But it's something's just not clicking. So I'm saying if we open up the talent pool, if we send one or maybe two franchises, make it an 18 tournament, and put two franchise bases in the US, that would open the door for more money to pour into the cricket. With more money pouring into the cricket, we can then in turn either pay the players to where they won't be as disgruntled and won't be as motivated to go and play in the franchise leagues and neglect the local league.
Right.
But you'd also, again, open the market, open the West Indies cricket market to the US market. And y'all are literally our brothers and sisters next door. Like we had a saying in the Caribbean, I think is when the US sneeze, the Caribbean catch a cold, right?
Right.
So it's like, why did we not tap into this market? Why did we have to wait until the US see the value in cricket and create their own league when we were actually hosting CPL teams in Florida?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many things that we could have done as an administration that would have poured money back into West Indies cricket, would have poured time, resources, and everything to West Indies cricket. And everybody just sat on that information and did nothing with it. And now we have players who are seeking a means for their family, because let's be honest, the Caribbean, as much as I don't like the term, is a third world country.
Right. Depending, what island you're absolutely correct. And
all the islands, if I'm being honest, are somewhat borderline. You could say third world country if you look at it from the definition of what it is.
No, agreed. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, because here's the thing: when the U.S. and you live here, it's a melting pot, okay? Mm-hmm. And there's so many different nationalities here that when they came and, for instance, started pushing football, right, Major League Soccer, and people were like, "Why? Why? Because it's absolutely smart. It's a different revenue stream. You expand into it." Yep. And the NFL is king of sports. But are they stopping there? They ran well. What are they doing? They're having games in Germany. They're having games in England. They're having games in Mexico. They're having games in Canada. Expanding. Why wouldn't you go and expand the sport and go in and tap into a different revenue stream? Because again, that TV money is different from whoever, depends what state or what country is watching. The revenue for advertising is going to be different. I mean, it was a no-brainer. Like you said, they've already hosted games here. They have the venue down there. Why they didn't do it, I do not know. I think it's just a lack of forward thinking, a lack of planning. And honestly, it just shows that there should have been a vote of no confidence for the entire West Indies cricket board a long time ago. Like, you know what? I nominate you, Biggs. Nick, let's get him over there. I'm serious.
I second.
Rashaad, your application, and we are going to make sure that we support you in getting on there, because it's not that hard.
Right.
It really isn't. It's just that people become what's the word? They just become
complacent.
Complacent. Thank you. With we're doing just enough, right? We're making enough money. There's always another opportunity, and they think about it from a selfish reason instead of thinking about it from a national reason, giving again more resources to the other countries so that they can improve the game of cricket and improve the standings of the West Indies. So I agree. I don't know why they didn't do it, and that's a really good point. You brought that up.
But even from a young age, I would like to say that I've always had this mindset. If I am a greedy person and I want to consume money for myself, the best way to do that is to boost whatever industry that I have, allow that to make money, and then I draw the money from that. So if the presidents and the selectors and all these people love the money that they're getting, and all the stakeholders and everybody else loves money that they're getting, I think the way forward is to develop the cricket so that the cricket is marketable, so that you can now include more stakeholders, bring in more revenue, and then you could pocket the money. Because it'll be so much money, we won't be able to identify how much you're storing away for yourself. When you have this small pool and everybody in the administrative roles getting paid, but the players aren't, then you know, hey, you may be kind of dipping too much into the cookie jar, and you are not sharing it for the rest of us.
Exactly.
And then that's when you have that strife between player administration. And I mean, there's so much that we can do, even down to, again, lack of resources. But Caribbean islands are so close. We went, and yes, rightfully so, due to COVID, travel was a little bit limited and whatnot. But there were still means to where neighboring islands could, like a Trinidad and a Barbados, could have come and play cricket against one another. And Anguilla and St. Martin, a St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Montserrat, Dominica, Grenada, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, whatever. However you want to divide it, there could have been competitive cricket hosted by the boards between these two islands, and then you pick a select few players and then somewhat kind of try to, with the assistance of the local governments, bring them together in small groups and have them train amongst one another. There are ways that we can actually stretch our dollar without really and truly stifling our bank accounts, our money, so to speak, to where we can still develop our players and still somewhat, make money, even down to the YouTube revenue, the YouTube avenue. Sorry, there are so many fans in the US, in the UK, and as West Indies on a whole, they are most world teams' second favorite team.
Right.
If you actually show a lot of the regional cricket and you look at the numbers, they make outstanding numbers on the West Indies YouTube page. Why wasn't this done years ago? I was screaming for this. Where are we? I want to watch regional cricket and I can't. There's no means of seeing it on TV. There was no streaming services of it at all. And I'm like, don't they realize that there's money in this? People want to see cricket.
That's the problem. Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, I remember when I started realizing how big cricket was getting here in the state, when ESPN started like, oh, we're having live, not on ESPN 2 or 3 or whatever, on ESPN, they're the main mothership flagship channel. They're having games, and they're bumping out other games like the NBA games or whatever for big cricket matches or whatnot. So yeah, you're right. It's been a long time coming. It's a shame it took so long, but thankfully now we have more avenues to watch some of those games. Dude, I don't want to keep you too long. I know about the time change and everything. I just got a few more questions. One is, you're going back home, right? I know you told me about going back home for the holidays. For the holidays, to go visit mom. And when you do end up going back home, what do you feel like is the biggest difference between American fans here and cricket fans? Like, because obviously living here, we're aggressive fans, but there is a difference, and on the world stage, even in the World Cup, like you can see the way Americans behave versus the way other fans of places behave and whatnot. Like, what do you see the big difference as when, like, culturally?
I don't want to give myself in trouble. But in terms of the US, right? I've always viewed the fans as loud regardless of what the result is.
Right.
If they're winning, they're in your face. Your team sucks. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
If they're losing, then they cussing other people and want to pick fights. We Caribbean people, when we lose, when we're winning, we're shouting, we're dancing, we're partying and whatnot. When we're losing, we're either quiet or we're cursing the players. We're not cursing the fans or anybody else. We're literally attacking the players. So I think that's one of the differences that we have. It's just that Americans are very consumed into the sport.
Yes.
And almost like they're either the honorary coach or they feel like they were a former player that could play in any era and
self-appointed
the game. So
listen, the worst thing any player could do is go on Twitter or actually read their because people are going to let you have it. People are going to let you have it. Okay. Yeah. Everybody thinks they're coach. Everybody thinks that they know better. And it's, I feel bad for the players. I do. Cause I'm one of those emotional guys, but I do know there's a difference.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude, you get emotional over badminton or something like that.
Listen,
you know what's crazy is we've done lots of cricket reactions and we've had some like 30 years ago about how a fan and a player got into it or whatever. I've seen just in college football this year at least 3 different times where a player has hit a fan. Like, it's out of control, in my opinion. So I completely agree. The American fans are nuts, but we like to use the word passionate.
I mean, fan is short for fanatic, people. So just saying, it is short for fanatic. So yeah, we're fanatics about it. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But I do think that does have to stop, though. Like, at the end of the day, these people are still people. Yeah. So yes, you are a fan. Yes, you do drive the market.
Right.
But that does not give you the right to put your hands on the players and expect them to not retaliate.
Right. And even more than that, I think that, you know, to Nick's point, right? I made a pledge, Nixon. I'm not going to besmirch the name of John Campbell anymore because realistically, the guy's going through a tough time and he's a person. He has family, you know, right now. Don't kick a man while he's down. Don't, you know what I mean? Don't you got to be able to separate the game from the person. And I'm sure he's a great dude. You know what I mean? We can hang out, have a drink, watch a game or whatnot.
He is not going to hang out with you.
Or not hang out with you. You know what I mean? Maybe with Nick. Nick hasn't been as mean to him. But the point is, like, we do as fans need to know where that line is and where that boundary is. And as I've gotten older, I've matured more and I've learned to try to have that boundary right there. But yeah, from time to time, you might say things because we're emotional about it, but that's because we're passionate about it, right? We put so much time into it, man. But I mean, those are my thoughts, man. Those are my questions for you. Nick, any parting questions here so we don't keep him too long?
Well, I want to say thanks again, Rashaad. I still want to call you Biggs, but Rashaad, thanks again. Last thing I want to say is, as we were talking about having you on, you had mentioned there were some thoughts you had. I just want to give you the time for any other thoughts you've had a chance to share it because we haven't brought it up that you want to say about the state of West Indies cricket.
Well, firstly, I just want us to really and truly, as an administration, really and truly look at ourselves. Yes, it's all fine and good to fire the coach every single time that we do badly, but that's not the answer because we've had coach after coach. We've had Phil Simmons twice. We've had Otis Gibson. We had I think his name was Plymouth or something like that, who actually was one of the first few coaches to beat England in quite a long time. In what was it, 2019 or something like that?
Yeah.
It was our first series.
Yeah. We've just had coaches and basically the same administrators all the time. And at some point, I always say, if you're going stage to stage and you're coming to the same conclusion, is it real the people around you that have an issue or is it you? And I don't think that they've recognized or admitted to themselves that they are a hindrance. And another thing that we speak in the Caribbean, yes, we do have personal pride, And don't get me wrong, I do love to see our Caribbean people going into positions of power and, excelling and whatnot. But at some point, you have to invest in the future of the game and maybe branch out to an Australia, England, India, and bring in a coach to establish a structure, a culture of winning, of, a standard of discipline. That's what I'm looking for, of discipline. And then teach our local coaches, our local administrators the way forward. And then we can now put them in those positions. Because obviously right now we don't have it. So I know that there is a call against bringing in international eyes and don't want to really and truly muddy up the pool, so to speak, because they don't see West Indies cricket as a priority because they're not from here. I get that cry, but also you got to look at it from a long-term planning. Like you say, have foresight. We don't have the resources. These guys do. These guys have the know-how. These guys have seen and done things that we haven't even fathomed yet.
Right.
Expose ourselves to it, even if it's on a temporary basis, and then allow our guys to now follow that mold and develop their games and develop their coaching styles, their administrative practices and whatnot. And then we can see cricket grow.
Holy cow, dude. That was actually one of the most well thought out answers. But honestly, it's sad that fans can think about these things and the people up top, the ones in charge, don't.
It's all about the money.
It's so frustrating because here's the thing. You even see that at the difference between, for instance, high school ball and college ball is so vast where, Trey will tell me, Dad, my high school playbook was literally 10 pages. His college playbook is probably 110 pages, and he carries that thing around religiously. And they go through film. They've got so much more resources and so much more knowledge. And going to those other bigger countries that have those resources and bringing in those coaches that might be able to use technology different, might have a different insight on the game. Pick their brains. What are you doing differently? Right. England does it. England just brought in what was it? A Kiwi, right? Isn't Baz a Kiwi? Or no, Baz is
he's a Kiwi.
Yeah, Baz is a Kiwi, right? Australia does it. Like India.
And they brought Australian coach for their T20 squad.
Exactly.
The white ball squad.
That is so smart and probably the way to move forward. Like you said, if you're firing coach after coach after coach, obviously you guys aren't going to fire yourself. Well, maybe it's our coaches that in this pool right here have limited knowledge and only know how to teach the game one way. To your point, all our players literally get out the same way, right? Maybe we bring in somebody else that can teach a different style or form of the game. And dude, that's just wow. Honestly, I hope that they say somehow this small part of the interview gets to some of those ears up there. Like, really? Maybe we should hire somebody. You know what I mean? Like, that's my interview. That's how my geeky guy is.
Right.
All the corporate dudes. That's my impression of them. Maybe we should bring in someone. Let's see. And about them not taking it seriously because they're not from the Caribbean. It's a check, cousin. If somebody's getting paid, they're gonna do their best. A check's a check. All right. Bottom line, so they're gonna want to maintain that check and maintain their value. So if you hire
their reputation
and their reputation, they're gonna do a good job. Come on, don't even use that as an excuse. But man, that was an awesome parting thought there, Rashaad. And man, guys, listen. Let's figure out who the best coach would be. Who's available to bring him to the West Indies, Nick? And let's go on Twitter and just push him. I'm gonna tweet him personally, like, "Hey, West Indies is hiring. We need a new coach." Even though I could get an $8, bro.
He's gonna call the West Indies board like, "You guys are hiring? No, we're not hiring. That guy's crazy."
But all we got to get an $8 check, and I could make myself part of the West Indies board. I'm just saying it and say, "Hey, we're hiring."
Oh man,
we start in that way.
Right.
We almost went an hour without going off the rails. You went off the rails. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching us today as we talked to Rashaad, a true West Indian fan who knows what he's talking about, educates us, and it lets us know his passion. We appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Rashaad, you're the man. Thank you so much.
By the way, I will tell you guys I've streamed a little story behind the John Campbell situation. I know it may be an independent investigation, and I don't want to tie up the channel with my speculation, so I'll tell you guys off stream, but I'm pretty sure it'll make you guys, chuckle a bit.
Got you.
Oh, I love it.
But I want to say thank you guys for having me.
Welcome.
I'm not the best at public speaking. I actually really hate it, but I'm just so passionate about cricket, and I love the way how you guys. I love your drive and the way you guys actually try to, learn the game and really and truly be about cricket. So I could put aside my fears and whatnot just to sit down here and have this discussion. So I really
You did fantastic.
Yeah, you did fantastic, brother. You did a great job. Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, that's 6 runs.